All right, so you're gearing up for the Google Cloud Professional Data Engineer Renewal exam. You're in the right place. This is a focused guide for experienced pros like you, so we're going to skip the basics and dive right into what's changed and what you really need to know.
Okay, so let's dive right in and look at what this exam is all about. This isn't your original certification test. Not at all. The renewal is way shorter, just 1 hour, about 20 questions, and it's much less about just remembering facts. It's all about architectural reasoning. The big areas you really have to master are designing systems, storing data, and analysis. Those each make up about a quarter of the exam. Then you've got maintenance and a smaller slice for ingesting and processing. That's the breakdown.
So, to tackle this, we're going to structure our review around those 5 official domains. We'll hit designing modern data systems, ingesting and processing, storing and governing, analysis and sharing, and finally, maintenance and automation. The key here is focusing on the modern services and patterns they expect you to know now.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, Designing Modern Data Systems. This is one of the heaviest weighted sections, and the name of the game here is Security, Reliability, and Governance. They really want to see that you understand the modern architectural patterns, especially when it comes to locking down your entire data ecosystem. So let's look at a classic scenario, and this one comes straight from Google's own sample questions. Imagine you've got some really confidential data sitting in a pub subtopic in Project A. The big question is, how do you lock that down so that no other project, not now and not in the future, can ever get its hands on that data?
Now, if you're thinking, oh, just IAM roles, that's kind of the old way of thinking. The modern answer, the one they're looking for, is all about defense in depth. We're talking about things like VPC service controls to literally build a secure network perimeter around your project. But it doesn't stop there. You're also expected to know about using customer-managed encryption keys, the DLP API for automatically redacting sensitive info, and even using dataform assertions to build data quality checks right into your pipelines. It's a whole security and governance ecosystem.
Okay, on to Section 2, Ingesting and Processing Data. Now, you might look at the exam breakdown and see this is the smallest section by weight, but don't sleep on it. It's packed with questions designed to test you on one key theme: modernizing your pipelines and replacing old, clunky patterns with slick, efficient managed services.
And here's another one of those classic renewal-style problems. Your marketing team is hungry for data. They need to query customer data from your production Cloud SQL databases and mash it up with behavioral data from BigQuery. And they need to do it hundreds of times a day. So how on earth do you pull this off without bringing your production databases to their knees?
The magic word here, the service you absolutely have to know, is data stream. Think of it as Google's Serverless Change Data Capture, or CDC, service. It's designed to do exactly this: synchronize data from your operational databases, like Oracle or Cloud SQL, straight into BigQuery, with almost no latency and minimal impact on the source. This is the modern replacement for those painful, self-managed replication pipelines.
It's the same story with orchestration. The old way? You'd spin up your own Apache Airflow and wrestle with complex scripts. The new way, the GCP way, is all about managed services. You need to know why Cloud Composer 2 is the better choice for managed Airflow, but also, and this is crucial, when to opt for the much lighter, serverless workflows, especially for orchestrating API-driven logic.
Okay, let's shift gears to another absolutely critical section: storing and governing data. The big idea here is the massive industry shift away from having a separate, siloed data lake and data warehouse. We're talking about the rise of the data lakehouse and this concept of unified governance. And this sample question really hits the nail on the head. Your organization's data is a mess, right? It's spread out across all these different storage services. This makes it a nightmare to discover anything, to manage it, and forget about tracking data lineage. So how do you bring order to that chaos with a single unified solution?
The answer, my friends, is Dataplex. You can think of it as this intelligent data fabric, like a single pane of glass that you lay over all your distributed data. It doesn't move the data, it just gives you a unified way to handle discovery, governance, data quality, and lineage tracking across everything. Cloud storage, BigQuery, you name it.
And Dataplex doesn't work alone. Its partner in crime is BigLake. BigLake is the storage engine that supercharges BigQuery. It's what lets you point BigQuery at your data sitting in open formats on cloud storage and query it with all the fine-grained security and governance you'd expect. This is how you unify your data lake and warehouse into a true lakehouse.
And it's not just about governance. Reliability is huge too. When it comes to disaster recovery, you need to have this pattern memorized. If you need regional resilience with a tight 15-minute recovery point objective, or RPO, the go-to pattern is a dual-region cloud storage bucket with turbo replication, switched on. Lock that one in.
All right, so we've got our data stored and properly governed. What's next? Well, making it fast for analysis and easy to share securely, of course. That brings us to Section 4, Analysis and Data Sharing. This is all about accelerating insights and collaboration.
Here's a scenario that should feel very familiar. Your BI tool is hammering a massive 50 terabyte sales table in BigQuery. It's running hundreds of these slow, super expensive aggregate queries every single day. Your mission is to slash the response time and cut costs, all with as little maintenance as possible. This is a classic BigQuery optimization problem, and there's a very specific modern answer they're looking for.
And that answer is BigQuery Materialized Views, or MVs. These are basically pre-computed views that BigQuery smartly keeps up to date behind the scenes. The real beauty is that BigQuery's query planner is smart enough to automatically use them to speed things up, without anyone having to change a single line of their original query. For these common aggregation patterns, they are the go-to solution, and they blow older techniques out of the water.
And when it comes to sharing data, the old way was to just copy data all over the place, which is a government's nightmare. The modern, secure, governed approach is Analytics Hub. Think of it like a private app store, but for datasets. Publishers can create an exchange and list their datasets. Subscribers can then browse this marketplace and subscribe. And boom, a read-only linked dataset just appears in their project. No data duplication, no mess.
And that brings us to our final section, number 5, maintaining and automating data workloads. This is where the rubber meets the road. The exam is going to test your ability to look at a running system, troubleshoot what's going wrong, and optimize it for cost and performance. So let's get operational. You're looking at your Cloud Composer 2 environment, and you see worker memory usage is spiking. Even worse, your tasks are starting to fail with these dreaded worker pod evictions. What do? This is a direct test of your hands-on knowledge of managing a critical service like Composer. The correct approach here is a two-pronged attack. First, you look at resources. If you're getting pod evictions, the most direct action is to increase the memory available to each worker. Your secondary action might be to increase the max number of workers to spread the load. On the other hand, if you're just seeing high memory usage, your first move should probably be to reduce the worker concurrency, how many tasks each worker runs at once, before you start throwing more hardware at the problem. And sticking with the operations theme, when it comes to BigQuery, you have to think beyond just the on-demand, pay-as-you-go pricing model. A huge part of this section is knowing how and when to use BigQuery additions and reservations. This is how you get predictable costs and, more importantly, guaranteed capacity for your really mission-critical workloads. So as you're doing your final prep, try to keep this one core idea in your head. The renewal exam isn't just a pop quiz on new features. It's testing something deeper. It's about understanding why a particular service or pattern is the new best practice. Every question is really asking, do you understand modern data architecture on GCP? So I'll leave you with this question. Which of these modern services, whether it's Dataplex for governance, Dataform for in-pipeline quality, or Analytics Hub for secure sharing, are you going to master first to lock in that renewal? Really focusing on how these newer, integrated services solve today's problems, well, that's going to be your key to success. Good luck with your studies.